Well, good afternoon. What day is today? April 2nd, 2024. It's time for another Due Diligence. And today I'm here with Josh Little of Volley, a tool that I want to say it was a year ago I discovered through a friend named Amanda, who was already a big fan of it at the time. And I just love this app. I love the idea of asynchronous communication. I loved the style. I remember very clearly that there was a very simple instruction, which was the 5 Bs, which I think was be brief, baby, be brief. And I actually took that to heart all year, even when Volley went away for a while. I took it to my looms. I took it to anywhere I did videos. I really tried to clean up my language, be impeccable with my words, use word economy, and do the same thing with video. And also, gotta say, even through that process, got more comfortable on video, which I even recall talking with. I'm just rambling already because I'm excited, but you know what? I'm just gonna keep talking and say, Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and all that.
Yeah, sure. Kind of an odd way to entrepreneurship. I started as a teacher. I started my career as a teacher, realizing that wasn't it. I taught in public school for a year, just because I had to once I got the degree and felt like I needed to at least do a little. But quickly moved on into the world of sales, and tried to figure out what on earth someone with this skill set of teaching could do for the world. And turns out sales, if you can teach 11th graders about American history, you can probably sell someone a thing. So did very well in sales, actually, in the corporate world, 3 different pharma and medical device companies, but got the entrepreneurial itch along the way. I read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it was just a mind-blowing book for me. I know a lot of my friends have read the book and they're like, well, I kind of knew all this stuff. And I'm like, what? What? So it really just kind of woke me up to the idea you can own a business if you want to. You can choose to be wealthy if you want. What, you just have to make different decisions in your life. So yeah, I got captivated with the idea of entrepreneurship and just spent like 5 years while I was in the corporate world just trying to figure out what on earth kind of business would I start. And it was really scratching my own itch. My first company was an e-learning company because I was trying to build a global e-learning program for Stryker, a medical device company. And it was just like a circus working with these 5 different vendors, videographer, 3D animators, designers, and trying to pull all this together was like a full-time job. And I thought, well, there should just be a company that does this. Why can't I find that company? And so in 2007, started my first company called Maestro, when we essentially were an interactive agency. In Construct had developers, designers, product managers, project managers, etc. Except we were fully focused on building e-learning content. So we could also build your website and create a logo, but that's not what we did. And it was quite successful. A lot of people at the time had the same problem or question that I did. And so we quickly got to the who's who of medical device and pharma companies. And today Maestro creates e-learning content for Facebook and Netflix and Microsoft and other cool companies like that. And from the success of Maestro, was able to sort of see at a high level the problems that existed in all of these different training programs we were working with. And we realized that 90% of what someone needs to know to do their job, that they don't actually learn from, quote, training. They learn it from this conversation, that video, that doc that person put together, all of this unstructured knowledge and unstructured learning. And so in 2009, I built a company called Bloomfire, which was what I called a social learning platform at the time. There's allowed people to easily share knowledge with one another at work, doing short webcam videos or screen records, or kind of a corporate wiki. It was a little bit ahead of its time, but since has kind of the world is caught up, and now Bloomfire is one of the premier knowledge management platforms. That's the category that was kind of created. At least that's what Gartner and Forrester call it. So That company was acquired in 2011 and then again in 2022 last year. And I rode along for the second acquisition a little bit as well. And then after that, I thought I was done. I could have been done technically, financially, but after a year of goofing off and adjusting the sprinkler heads in my lawn, I kind of got bored. And so since I'd already built a service company, I'd already built a product company, I thought, well, I want to build a company that builds companies. So I created a venture studio called Movement Ventures. And we built about 5 or 6 different things. And then our 7th one just took off like lightning. 1 million users in the first month. It was called Quizzer. It was a quiz tool that allowed you to make a simple quiz and embed it in your website.
Hmm.
I built it for teachers and trainers, but publishers actually got a hold of it. And because BuzzFeed, I don't know if you remember, kind of this quiz craze in 2013, 2014, BuzzFeed quizzes, what color is this dress, all that stuff. That was happening at the time, and everyone was trying to figure out how to engage our audience like BuzzFeed was, and Quizzer was the tool that they started to adopt. And so we went to hundreds of millions of users monthly with Quizzer, grew that company. We ended up shutting down the studio, raising venture money for Quizzer, and grew that. I stepped away in 2016. The company was ultimately acquired again 2022. And then again, thought I might be done. Didn't know. Thought, early retirement. Who knows? Took 4 years off this time. Spent 2 of those just trying to find my next thing. When the pandemic hit, I started thinking deeply about what's going to change in the world and what's going to permanently change from this interesting time in history. And I knew that the way people work and the way is going to change. Remote work is going to be here to stay. It's going to stick, at least for a certain percentage of companies. And therefore the way we communicate needed to change. I was communicating heavily with friends on an app called Marco Polo at the time. And I thought, what if Marco Polo had a baby with Slack? Wouldn't that be the most unbelievable thing? Slack is great in this multi-threaded channelized communication, right? Where you can create a space and invite your team. But what if you could easily create and share videos like what you could in Marco Polo? Taking kind of a page out of the book, of what worked at Bloomfire, we created Volley. This is this is 2 months after pandemic. We started building Volley, May of 2020. And like you said, Volley is a video messaging app that allows people to have flexible face-to-face communication. There's a reason we're doing this podcast live, talking to each other, and so that you can see my face, I can see your face, I can hear your tone of voice. 38% of communication is tone of voice. 55% of communication is body language, what we look like when we say the words we're saying. Only 7% of the full picture of communication is actually the words we choose to speak. So that was our assumption in Volley, that allowing teams to feel connected in a way that was not possible through Slack would be a huge improvement in communication. Solve the top 3 problems of remote work, which are lack of communication, loneliness, and meeting fatigue. So Volley aces that test. So started building that. We raised $5.5 million in venture money to build it. Venture money was flowing like water in 2021, so it was easier to get than it is today. We did our best with Volley. We grew the user base to about 60,000 users. Turns out that it's video communication is hard for most people, like being seen on a video. What we're doing right now, just leaving the camera on while we're having a conversation, that's something we're used to. We've been doing our whole lives. We have a face-to-face synchronous conversation. But although we've all taken videos of other people, most people have never flipped that selfie camera around and spoke and made a video of themselves talking. And so we learned pretty quickly with Volley, like 90% of people get a rash, like have a real reaction to like recording a selfie video of them to communicate, even though it's a fundamentally better way to communicate, richer, faster. You can listen to each other on 2x, like all of the benefits. And so we faced some headwinds with Volley, especially when it came to team communication. And we thought that the Marco Polo behavior would kind of continue in the team communication. But if you look at Marco Polo's user base, a lot of friend and family communication. Those are high trust, low risk environments. And when you think about team communication, they're just the opposite. It's low trust, high risk environments. And so recording a video of yourself is kind of a high risk behavior. So we did our best to try to get Volley out into the world, monetize it, ran out of money, monetized too late. And we can get into all of this, but we ended up shutting Volley down April of 2023. And I started a venture studio again. And one of the first investments we made was to acquire Volley, rebuild it, and relaunch it. And we just relaunched last week.
Cool. No, okay. So many things that now I understand why we've connected as well, because like some of our background is similar. Yours has been much more successful. Mine has been me getting my own way. But for 10 years, I was a Microsoft MVP in SharePoint and 365, which was a environment, the cloud first kind of idea, but also so much learning platform stuff was done in SharePoint because they already had it, right? That was the idea with SharePoint, was always, well, it's already here. We're already licensed for it. What else can it do? And that's kind of what hurt the product, really, is it failed in lots of areas. And so anyways, Microsoft's gotten back to doing what it does best with that piece and stripped everything else out. And then I've actually never used or seen Marco Polo, but it's the second time you've mentioned it. So it's curious that I've never actually come across that, because it sounds like it's the kind of thing that would have tweaked my interest.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude, the Volley is so many things, and the video thing is really interesting. Like, even as I start reconnecting with people this week and doing one-to-ones with them, that is the constant comment I get back is, "Ooh, I'm not sure how I feel about being on video." And some of them are literally, they've sent a video and forgot it was on, and so I'm just watching them all get comfortable with it. But I think it's exactly what we need. I mean, it's there's so much to get. I send video as much as I can. I find some people don't love it unless there's a transcription, because they really just want to read the text that was said. But if they want to jump to the inflection point, they can. But I think it's mostly they're nervous about them being on video. They're not so much bothered that I'm comfortable being there. And I just think there's so much to be said with the eyes and with the face and the tone and like all those intuitive hits that we're missing, right? So
that's right.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Where do I want to take you from here, though? Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you reacquired your own company through your incubator. It's pretty awesome. So tell me more about that. Like, you obviously had to make some decisions to do it differently, because you put time and a team and a vision in, and then if you're going to start over a year later and announce you're back, what were the key things that you said to yourself you wouldn't do this time?
Well, part of it is what you said very early in your last thought there was, it needs to happen. I see no future of the world that we want, a more flexible, dynamic world that is connected, that we don't use async video a lot more in our communication, whether at work or school, at play, wherever. I just don't see it. Like, I don't think text is the vehicle. It's just too thin of a medium. Mm-hmm. So I know that we were right with our bet. It was just maybe the wrong time. And where we got to with Volley, there were a number of factors that kind of led to the shutdown. Global pandemic happens, we assume there's going to be this massive behavior change, but it really didn't pan out like we thought it would. People still kind of had this aversion to async video, at least, right? So if that's not going to change people's behavior, I don't know what's coming down the road that's going to. We might actually just have to wait for the TikTok generation to get into the workplace and start, getting in charge, because my kids, they don't text, they talk, they do speech to text, or they're doing audio messages, or now Volleys, but it's just a different mentality. And I think, the folks that are in the workplace now grew up with a different medium, right? And text is kind of the go-to communication. So that's one piece that I just see no future, that we're not using async video more to communicate a more connected, flexible future. The other is, when you take money from venture capitalists, there's a certain kind of pressure and expectation that comes along with it. The product has to grow at a certain level, to be able to achieve its next round of funding, which is kind of the goal of each round of funding, is just to grow it even more to get to that next round of funding. And if it's not, you're kind of stuck. And even though it's a great business, it's not a venture backable business. So once you get on that treadmill, it's really hard to get off of that treadmill. You can't just say, "No, we're just going to grow it organically over time." It's not an option. You have to keep going. And so, in hindsight, hindsight's always 2020. We would have done things differently. We probably should have monetized out the gate, but that's not what messaging apps do. If you look at like Discord or Telegram or WhatsApp, they didn't win because they had a great pricing strategy. They won because they built a great app that millions of people used for free, and it spread like wildfire, right? So
Mhm.
we were taking a page out of the messaging app playbook with investors that knew the risk profile of what we were getting into. And I think because of the headwinds with async video in the markets that we were in, which was, we're at first we were really focused on team communication, like the, Marco Polo Slack had a baby for work sort of thing. After about a year of that, we realized we're probably not going to win here. And then Slack launched Clips, and that didn't go well also. And
Mhm.
so, like, Slack now has Clips. You can share video messages. A very clunky experience. You have to kind of fully upload a message and see it sent before the other person gets it, unlike, Volley, where the person gets it seconds after you hit send.
Mhm.
Um, the So we saw that we were facing headwinds with team communication, but there were people using Volley, for their coaching, for their community, that were having wild success. Some of our busiest, most active spaces on Volley were not teams. They were, Tim Schmoyer's video creators course, or, who's a YouTube, guru, or fitness groups. They were having a ton of success. So we started listening more and more to those groups and starting to build features for them. And then to compound the challenge, that we had, I don't know how much you or your audience knows about this, but in April of 2022, Sequoia and Y Combinator sent out messages to all of their portfolio companies saying, get as much runway as you can, cut costs, cut expenses. And it kind of struck fear in the whole industry of venture capital. And so we call it VC winter. VC winter set in. So that means very few companies were funded for and still aren't. Like, it's still much harder to get an investment from a venture capitalist at this point. And so we had VC winter set in when we had about 6 months runway of left, and we were going out to try to raise our next round. And so we realized we needed to monetize, it, but it was a little bit too late to try to do that, and our user base was a little bit too small.
Mhm.
60,000 users sounds like a lot, but for messaging apps, you really should have millions before you start thinking about monetizing. So we did. We put a pro plan out there, which didn't didn't get picked up by very many people, and then we immediately started building some features that allowed people to charge for experiences they were creating in Volley. And while that was much better received by our audience and people loved that idea, um, behind the scenes, looking at the data, it was a super churny business model. We were churning about 50% of our consultants a month. They were churning about 50% of their clients per month. So we're stacked up. That's like 100% churn monthly situation. That's an impossible bucket to fill up over and over each month. And so, looking at all those factors, and running out of capital, not able to get more, we had no other choice than to just shut it down.
Mhm. Yeah, and then but you're back, right? And,
Yeah.
like, you don't hear that story very often, so, I mean, it's good to see you back. But I remember saying, when we were talking a year ago, and then just thinking again. Like to me, you talked about meeting fatigue, but like decision fatigue is a thing as well. And to
Mhm.
me, this is a great decision making platform. Like
Yeah,
bantering back and forth when like I'm ready to reply because the inspiration there is there to reply instead of let's meet Monday at 9 o'clock and
right.
show up and both be in the mood to discuss this thing. Right?
And hope magic happens, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it just doesn't work that way. At least not for me. Um, but being able to like talk something through
Mm,
and do it back and forth until the energy is produce the result, or you run out of steam and be like, oh, maybe it wasn't such a good idea. We'll
yeah.
connect this time on a different one. You know.
And have
So that,
time to think. Like for me, that's huge. There was a educational researcher in the 70s, her name Mary Budd Rowe. She did all this research on time to think, the time to think problem, and what she would do is conduct studies where students would know that they would have 3 seconds to think before they had to answer. There was like a pause that they had to take before anyone answered the question. And what they found is just giving students only a 3 second gap of time to think allowed them to create a fundamentally better response and allowed more inclusion because more people got a response. I was one of those kids that sat in a classroom just quiet because I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know the answer. I could if I thought about it for a minute, but she's already answered. He's already answered. So I'll just be quiet, right? And so I found that with async communication as well. And I don't need an hour to think, but I might need a minute to think about what you just said and to go Google something and to think about that and do some research and come back with you with a fundamentally better response 1 minute later. You didn't need my response within 200 milliseconds, which is the socially acceptable gap in turns in a communication, right? We sense it across all languages and all cultures. Yeah. 200 milliseconds is the gap. All languages, it's 200 milliseconds. 600 milliseconds, less than a second. That's the time it takes to make a keystroke is an awkwardly long pause in conversation. That's what's read as an awkwardly long pause.
Hmm.
And you can feel it. You can feel it right there that I took less than a second gap. You could, is he okay? What's happening if you're
Yeah, did
listening?
the screen freeze? Yeah.
But you don't need an answer that fast. Most business communication, we're not trying to figure out whether we're going to launch the missile today or not. Most business communication is slower. It can be in parallel paths, and we can be chewing on multiple ideas at once. And so
Mhm.
async communication allows that affordance of time to think. And I think that's what prevents the decision fatigue that you're talking about, or lets my ideas don't come while I'm sitting here talking to you in a meeting. They'll come as soon as I stand up and go get a drink or, go outside and walk or get in my car. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's it.
Yep.
But, we're not in a meeting. How do I share that with you? Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could just quick hit record and, oh, dude, I got it. Here it is. What do you think about this? And 20 seconds later, boom, you get it. Okay, now you get time to think. You get time to think. Maybe it's 10 minutes. Digest it, respond, bounce that off somebody else. Oh, you're right. That's the answer.
Mhm.
Um, what would have that have been otherwise? A 30-minute meeting, an hour meeting that we maybe milled around and maybe got to a conclusion, maybe didn't, but the mood didn't strike either of us.
Maybe
So
even never got to the point because the meeting got started and Betty started talking about her dog, and all of a sudden it became a meeting about dogs, right? And so,
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so many ideas come from the shower, and I was just watching
they do.
something recently, and it's like literally that moment when you're in the shower and you're washing yourself. It's so automatic, like driving, that's when your
Mhm.
thoughts come because that's the one moment that you're not thinking about things, and because water carries information, you're actually like getting rid of energy that's occurred earlier and basically taking in new, and that helps the body think. So then you just want to make sure after you get out of the shower, you don't throw a towel on before you volley.
Before you volley. Yeah, that's right.
That could actually be some best practices. If you're
That's
in
right.
your shower time, just put
That's
on a
right.
please. So,
That's right. Yeah.
cool. Hmm. Um. So many things. I want to make some spaces, as you know,
Yeah.
um, And so maybe what I thought I'd do is talk through what I'm hoping to use the platform for, like outside of just trying to get my wife and family on board. I'm actually taking a really hard line this time, which is this is where you're going to find me. Not I'm not on Telegram and Signal and Facebook Messenger and iMessage and like, you know,
Mhm.
text messaging is I'm hoping to restrict it to friends and family and they just need something. But
Yep.
as far as communications, I'm trying to direct people to Volley because there's so much more information I can get out of people when they're taking the moment to pause and think about what they're saying. Because
Mhm.
they're even pausing to just make sure you look good on video is at least a pause, right? And they don't need to reply with video. This is the one thing I keep reminding those that are showing resistance is send a text back. I'm sending you a video because I need you to have the whole picture from me.
Mhm.
And I really want to limit how much wasted time or energy we have trying to
Yep.
understand what each other's saying, right? So
And you can speak 7 times faster than you can type, so why wouldn't you take that speed gain, right?
totally. And like if I stop and type, I am really starting to think about am I using the right word? Oh, why did I
Mhm.
choose that word? And before I know it, I forget like what the entire why of why I was responding. So I'm getting
That's
better at
right.
just throwing the camera on. I do find myself rambling, but that's just kind of me. And then they could put it in 1.5 times speed and zip through that
Mhm.
piece. And
Mhm.
um, I'm curious, actually. I don't know if I've noticed it in there. Does Volley do any AI kind of editing, like takes out ums and ahs, or like some other platforms are starting to do now? Like,
Not yet, but it's on the roadmap for sure,
right?
yeah.
It makes sense that
Mhm.
if um, yeah. I just think it's so important to have async communications. Like, it's amazing to me that it didn't take off the first time. Except I know exactly what you are saying. Like, I don't know about you, but it seems like most people are zoomed out. So they're actually like wanting to not be on video, but they
Mhm.
also don't want to meet in person because they've forgotten how to be an adult in a room with other adults. So that's I think where it goes to text, which is and being a guy that's been in IT for 30 years and I used to build mail servers. Um, I hate email. It becomes this archiving system that it shouldn't be used for that. A project management communication system, what
Mhm.
it's terrible for. Things get lost in spam, so much so that people will just say, "Oh, I sent you a message. Oh, you didn't get it. Must have got caught in spam." Like it's an auto out to not
Yeah.
be accountable, and everyone's just like shrugs because we're like, "I know, right?" Like it's just, and that's not good enough actually. like I can uh, I can spot a liar, but and then and or like as per my previous email, and so now you're like digging up old emails to find someone
Yeah,
else.
there's no threading or context, yeah,
Yeah,
it's challenging.
it's a hot mess. So yeah. Um, so I want to build a space, or well, several, I think. But the first one is my wife and I have created a. You'd probably think of it as like a community wellness center here in Victoria or Saanishton, and so our sort of elevator pitch is we are creating a place of curiosity and trying to lead people better than we found them. So what that means is providing lots of interesting folks that come in and deliver events. We had a tuning fork expert in last week, which was just an amazing experience
Mm.
to just be part of. And or whatever it is, bring them in, get them interested, and then let them know that hey, we have like yoga classes and meditation classes and things to help you get rid of anxiety and stress. And so we have this business that have foot traffic, people coming through, but we're in a small community where it's not going to be a ton of business that comes that way. But we have the expertise, and I'd like to build sort of a membership area where people can either, um, you know, sign up for this thing and be able to have access to. I'm trying not to use the word mental health because that's a whole other thing, but like mentors and people that you can talk to about, breath work or anxiety, or have a channel that literally just is accumulating various breathing exercises that people can do to decompress at the end of the day. So I'm kind of envisioning this place where charging a nominal membership fee, and then having channels for these sort of like
Yeah.
different streams. So that's, I think, the first one I'd like to do. Um, and then the other one is I'm very much into this esoteric thing called human design, and it really is kind of like the a blueprint for people. So it's basically a
Hmm.
combination of science and the mystical that comes together and basically says, "Hey, this is who you are." And it's a fascinating experiment, and that's what they call it. It's not a religion, it's not a some belief system. It's this idea that each one of us is unique, and this is your blueprint. And the first time that I introduce it to folks, it's always there's a couple of holy shit moments. Like, how did you know that? Just by my birth info. Um, but then there's like an integration support after that. Like, you don't want to
Yeah,
leave
yeah,
people like hit between the eyes, going, "Holy shit, I don't know what that was. It it resonated for me," and then you just kind of go back to your lives. So I kind of want to offer like a consulting sort of practice where you pay for a reading, that first introduction, and then but leave them with like a month of ongoing support, or maybe just like an ongoing always kind
yeah.
of integration support, because I don't want to have to produce big, long, fancy videos that are really edited. I'd rather have someone say, "Hey, Sean, you said that I have an open throat, and what does that mean in this situation with this other person?" And I could actually like provide insights, but I do need 30 seconds to go and sit down and go like, how does that apply to them? Like, what is my vantage point on that? So
Hmm.
to me, that's another avenue to use it. And then I guess been giving you a whole big picture, but like, would I
Yeah,
combine the two into one space because they're similar? Or would one be me, Sean, the professional, and then the other would be Funky Town, the, unwind membership
yeah.
community?
Well, a few thoughts. I think both of those are excellent candidates for async modality, right? Uh, because in a way they're kind of ongoing support or coaching or therapy. And I used to meet with an executive coach for like 13 years, and she was amazing. At like 3:30 on Thursdays. But I rarely at 3:30 on Thursdays had a problem going into that call, right? It was 1 o'clock on Monday and 7 o'clock on Tuesday. And by 3:30 on Thursday, it's blown up in my face. And the problem's either resolved or a mess. So we're only just going to talk about it. So I had to kind of hold my breath till 3:30 on Thursday. But wouldn't it have been nice if I could have at 1 o'clock on Monday said, "Hey, I'm about to step into this. What do you think about this?" Or this person said this. What do you think how to do about that? In the moment. And again, I don't need like a 2-second response time from you, but if within the hour or 5 hours that day, at least I can get a response, it could be a lot more helpful than a 1 hour block at 3:30 on Thursday. So I think both the wellness angle and the human design from a 3-5 manifesting generator, I think
Oh,
could
you do?
be
There you
yeah,
go.
someone who was in the Volley community did a reading for me async before.
Really?
And so I
Oh,
think
fascinating.
that's what, if I'm saying the right words, I think that's what it was.
Multi-passionate, learns through trial and error, but projected onto you that people think you have the answers even if you don't. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you had me at hello there. That's right. Yeah.
That 3-5 profile grabs you quick. And we can talk about that all day.
But yeah, you're right. Ongoing support would be great, but like a scheduled, regimented. Hey, what if we meet for 1 hour a week? That probably isn't going to fit the need. So, how would you build that on Volley? I think one is obvious, the other is not. So, the community wellness program, that's obvious. It is a community, like-minded people that have or want to achieve the same goals that could help achieve those goals better through community. We learn as much through our peers as we do from our teachers or our mentors. So
Mhm.
in a community like program like that, where other people are asking questions, I learn as much from other people's questions and the answers as I do from my own questions, which maybe I don't even know what questions to ask, but listening to other people ask questions could be great. So in Volley, you can create a space. Like you said, a space is a place like a Discord server or a Slack workspace, a place where you can invite people into. It's a private community that you can create multi-threaded conversation, either channels or DMs that you can sub-thread from those. So you can have a multifaceted conversation in that community wellness center. You can have a channel on what did you say? Tuning forks. Like, this is the tuning fork channel, the tuning fork aficionados yoga channel, our breathwork channel, and people could join or leave those channels as they felt interest. Maybe I'm totally into yoga and breathwork, but tuning forks just wasn't my thing, and I don't want to hear the chatter over there, so I'm going to just leave that channel or silence that channel. You can have both options. So I think a space definitely for the community wellness piece would be powerful, not just for the individual members, but for the community collectively, to bring those people together, and to form those relationships face to face in a way that a community center can, but asynchronously and virtually, right?
Mm.
So that one's an obvious to me. The
Mhm.
second, the human design, is less obvious. Here's why. It's kind of personal. My reading and my take on my reading and my others' perceptions of me, that may not be something, maybe it is, and maybe it's something you want to do. That may not be something I feel comfortable sharing openly or having other people hear what you're saying about me publicly. So you could have a space, and you could have channels for different, because there's a lot of different types, right?
Oh,
Of
there's so many ways that you can chop up a human.
Yeah.
In
Yeah, yeah.
this.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like Enneagram where there's 8 types or whatever. There's like not infinite, but dozens of combinations, right? So probably not a channel for each. You could do that, but I would guess your communication in that space, if you created one, would probably be a lot of DMs one-to-one. And so that's why I wonder if that might not be a space, but it might just be a one-to-one personal DM. You've got your personal invite link. Have you created your /Sean or whatever yet?
Yeah.
Have you customized it?
Slash mischief. So
/mischief. Okay. Oh, now you've given the world
been there
your
for too long. So
Volley link. Yep.
that's okay.
Your Volley handle. So yeah, /mischief. So you could just say, hey, here's your reading after this session. I offer 1 month of consulting. It's included in this price. Here's my link. And so you can connect with me on Volley. However, okay, so just had a thought. In a space, you can do scheduled volleys. Do you think that there would need to be scheduled check-ins with these folks?
Are you talking the wellness center or the human design?
No, the human design. I mean, would you want to prompt them Monday mornings? Okay, tell me what you're thinking about this week in terms of your goals and what you've learned. You could schedule volleys in a space in DMs.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of different things. Like, for one, through human design, you can basically predict the astrological weather, like basically predict how the day is going to go. And so that'd be interesting too, to schedule it like on Mondays. It's like a weather report.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's ways you can do things.
Look out for this today.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, you could just like batch schedule a bunch of volleys that go to a channel, or to an individual. That could be interesting. And we built that feature because there were a lot of coaches they felt like the biggest challenge in their business was in between sessions, accountability in between sessions. How can you? Yeah, we talk. It sounds like everything's good. You have a plan. You leave, and then you come back next week or next month, and you didn't do any of it, or it fell apart. But I didn't know about it in time, right, until our next session. And so they're using scheduled volleys as a way to do like daily check-ins or weekly check-ins or whatever makes sense. So a space could make sense if you would want to do those sorts of daily check-ins, which doesn't have the functionality in DMs. We could add that, but
Well, yeah, or are we talking about effectively a CRM at that point? And so we'd meet in Volley, but let the accountability pieces happen in a platform that's got all those things. I don't know.
yeah.
Certainly for the human design thing, I think the DMs. I paid for the pro because I think that allows me to do 10 minutes instead of 3, so my replies can be
Longer.
lengthy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And you want to keep others people as short as possible.
Yeah.
On the free plan.
Um, yeah, and I love being able to speed. I love
Yeah.
the speed the video up. Sort of get to the point sometimes, which I'm
Yep.
rambling too. But yeah, and then meter. We were talking about metering the other day as well. It's that energy exchange is like just a bit about my design. I have the design of an anarchist. I am here to burn it all down. We don't need all this
Really?
structure. Oh yeah, yeah. Mine, it's like really clear on mine. And so, like anything that I don't have to pay taxes because nothing's getting fixed on my street, anyways, I would just rather exchange energy with people, right? And there's no like I'm doing an exchange. I'm going to do a human design reading with the guy that's going to cut our lawn, and it's no one's business that we've worked out that little exchange. So
Hmm.
and I love the idea of the metering, like being like you can have
Yeah.
up to 2 hours of my time this month for this membership fee, and then just I don't need it to cut people off. I don't need it to be like
Yeah.
it's just more like being able to show a report at the end of the month saying you're typically using 80%, sometimes it's 120, whatever.
Hmm.
But if someone's just like calling me or calling me all day, every day, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this, there's got to be some
Yep.
energy output respect, and that to me is really interesting about the metering piece. But I don't know if it would look quite the way it looked before if you even were to reincorporate it. But there's something there for sure.
Yeah, it certainly could. I don't know if you answered that question, but one of the questions I had on that was, oh, maybe you did. Sorry, had so many conversations. My question was, would you want both the sender and receiver to be metered as a total time, or just your time to be metered?
I remember that question, and I remember thinking in my head if it looked like a bar graph or like bars, like blue is how much time I put output, and green is how much they've output.
Mm,
So you could just
yeah,
sort of see that as long as it's balanced, I think. Like I shouldn't have to. Someone has 2 hours of my time and they consume 1 hour and 59 minutes telling me about what they want to talk about, and they still
yeah.
expect me to return it in kind. Like there's gonna be it's not worth my time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I think you'd want to see both. And you made a valid point at the time that I never even thought of, is that I'm thinking about my time speaking, not my time thinking and or
Yeah,
time
listening.
reading,
Yeah.
right? Listening or getting it right, or did I hear that right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's a lot of little things in there that'd be interesting to see. But yeah, I think selfishly for me, it's that energy exchange thing. Like, are we good at the end of this month? I mean, between you and me, I want to build an energy exchange app or platform. You ever seen the movie About a Boy with Hugh Grant?
It's been a long time. I don't know that I could
It's a good flick.
remember.
But
Yeah.
the first 5 minutes, he keeps talking about units. Like he's sort of introducing, he's this bachelor in an apartment. He's like, go to get my hair disheveled, 3 units, basically 15
Oh,
minutes per
yeah.
unit, or playing billiards, 2 units. And I was thinking, man, if I could just like exchange energy that way, because if I want someone to dig a hole, that's a lot of physical labor, but didn't require 30 years of knowledge to get that expertise. At the same
Hmm.
time, I can phrase something just right for someone because of my 30 years of experience. It's to the person digging a hole, it took me 10 seconds. So they don't value the time that it took for me to do that, right?
Hmm.
We, at the end of every month, we're like, are you good? I'm good. Okay, new month. I actually
Yep.
like anything that I do is agreements month to month. I don't sign long term agreements because I don't know if I'm going to want to do it in 6 months
Yeah,
or
smart.
that they're going to show up, right? So
Hmm.
I love the idea of like a month to month. It doesn't necessarily need to be a calendar month, but just like from a period of time to this period of time, are we good? Am I in deficit? Do it, and how do we correct that in such a way that it's not a bunch of people moving finances around as well, and charging to oversee it. So, but anyway, that comes from
Yeah,
that
I love it.
anarchistic
Anarchistic.
approach to everything.
When's your birthday?
February 5th.
February 5th. Okay.
Yeah.
So we just had it. Yeah, mine just happened March 27th.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Why'd you ask? Are you looking for my sign? And
No, I don't know. Just
it's
what
funny.
is an anarchist? Who else was born around the? But it's not just your birth date; it's your birth year
Mhm.
and location too, if I remember right.
Oh, for human design, yeah, yeah. It's
For human design, yeah.
time and location.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
but yeah, no, even just because there's an astrological piece to it, that's the part that I'm weak. But I was spending a lot of time going like, what is Aquarian energy? Or it turns out I'm a Scorpio rising, and watching some stuff on that this week and going like, oh, holy shit, that's exactly who I am.
Mhm.
Like, it's uncanny when you
You
start.
got me.
Yeah, yeah, you nail it and be like, And really, you are influenced by where you're born and what was around you at the time and the
No
energy.
doubt.
Yeah. So to me, it's fascinating. Like, even as I sit here talking about it, I'm excited about building this community, and I've kind of been waiting.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I've always been fascinated. Do you feel like that's the rationale why siblings born in the same family, fed the same food, taught the same things in the same community can be so different?
Oh, yeah, dude. So, well, if you want a little bit of background, a little bit what's been going on for me, I recently became friends with a woman named Dr. Eleanor Haspel Portner. And if you know anything about human design, it basically was a fellow named Robert Allen Krakauer. He was an ad executive out of Montreal. He was on the island of Ibiza. I think he'd done acid 400 times prior. He had an 8-day download, which basically gave him this synergy of stuff. So it was quantum physics. It was the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, all this stuff. And so he got all this information and kind of arrived and presented to the world. However, he was in a rush, not in a rush. He didn't even want this information. Like, it happened to him. He didn't,
Mhm.
wasn't in that space. But he had this download, this download of consciousness. And so all this stuff came to be. He then, about 10 years later, met Eleanor, the person that I've met recently. And she was actually like skilled in all these methodologies, like from the 70s. And she was, I don't know if you're familiar with Osho or seen that Wild Wild.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
She was there. Like, she was one of the people there.
No
And
way.
I've met like 3 or 4 of these people in recent months. They're all like,
Hmm.
even design is kind of tied to it. There's, the whole mystical and numerology and cartomancy and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
fascinating topic. But the where was I going with that? So he reached out to her to work with her to scientifically validate the human design system, right? Because it came from his head, came from this download, and he didn't really even know what he was talking about. He was kind of channeling it, and people were writing it down.
Mhm.
So he hired her to do it, and this is back when they were using punch cards, and like, this is, it wasn't, there was no AI to do this stuff. So she did, I think it was like 30,000 people's date information, trying to find out, like, to scientifically prove what he was saying. And there was something off with his calculations, that she basically parted from him and actually went on her own way. But she had 2 cats, 2 Siamese cats that were, born minutes apart. And she didn't wanted to understand why one of them lived till 10 and one lived till 18. And yet they lived in the same house, had the same thing. And so
Mhm.
she made that her 30-year study, basically, to figure out
Hmm.
how these 2 cats were ultimately different. And so it's fascinating. Like, she can break it down. She did a reading of our dog the other day. So we have a new puppy, and Willow. And so I'm going to upload that video shortly. But she actually did a design reading of a mammal, right? And so just gave me insights into this, our new dog too. So it's fascinating. So there's a design of
It
planet.
is fascinating, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so so
There's something to I can't put my finger on it. There is something that it can't just be coincidental, uh, about some of the logic or the astrological context of the cosmos when you were born at that certain time,
Mhm.
creating who you are, in a real way.
Well, like, it's like Australia. See, and I was none of this stuff would have been stuff that caught my attention 3 years ago, like, not even a little bit. But thanks to a big mushroom experience, that all changed. So,
Oh,
as they do, right? So, but like astrology, it seems to me, and maybe it's because I'm in that camp a lot more, but the last 6 months, the credibility around it, and just the, like,
oh
okay,
yeah,
something doesn't add up. And like, there's a major eclipse, right? Like, April 8th is going to be like some big, because people are just going to be stretched and pulled by this energy, like Mercury retrograde, or think about the moon and the tides. If we're 80% water and the moon can actually make the water flow in and on the beach, what do you think it's doing inside your brain when
yeah.
you're having a beer with your friend? Like, the
Mhm.
things you're saying, right? So, um, yeah, I don't know. It's fun.
Influence, but yeah, fascinating is the right word.
Mhm.
So back to the spaces. I'm curious, what do you think about for human design? What do you think about one-to-one DMs, where not everyone is in their own individual conversation versus bringing everyone together in a space? Do you see the benefit of a space, or do you think that is more like therapy that should be done? There is group work that can be done, but that should be done in a one-to-one conversation, right?
Yeah, and I had a bit of an epiphany last night, so it's interesting you asked that question. But I was trying to do the human design consulting thing as me, and not through Funky Town, this wellness center. And I don't know why I was doing that, because that's the place where people are looking for help and for information. Like, give me an insight. Why am I arguing with my child all the time, right? So even it was last night, I was like, oh, I'm barking up the wrong tree. So I definitely see making a space for Funky Town that's for the
Yeah.
community, this wellness magnet, and having things where people can share out loud, but they recognize that they're sharing it out loud. So if you're asking a
Mhm.
question, it's on them not to get too personal.
Sure.
But from the DM standpoint, if I'm going to be coaching, mentoring, helping energy, I'm actually playing with the term like energy strategist. That's kind of I don't know if that.
Mhm.
I'd be curious to hear what you think of that, but as an energy strategist, having DMs with them, that's where they can get personal and say, like, my
Yeah.
husband makes me crazy, and it's always like around this, and I can go, oh yeah, that's you've got this genetic history within your family that goes back, that you're afraid, and you were once eaten in a cave, or eaten by a mountain lion 300 years ago, and your body remembers it, or your family lineage remembers it. Like, some of this
Mhm.
stuff kind of goes to that level of detail. There's a something called environment, and I don't know, I'm just kind of nerd out because I always find this fascinating. But there's one called caves, and once you pull up the app and put someone's birth info, if you ever find anyone with caves, ask to meet them at a restaurant and let them pick the seat. And so I've done that with about 5, 6 people now. And every time I go in there and their back is to the wall and they can see all the exits
Hmm.
every single time. And I'll say, why'd you pick this seat? And each time their natural answer is, oh, it was close to the kitchen, or it's close to the bathroom, or it looked like it had a nice view. And I just look them in the eyes. I'm like, is it because you could see all the exits and your back was protected? And just to see their face, like they've never thought the thought, their body felt the thought.
Mhm.
That's caves as their environment. They are something in their genetic history
Yeah.
remembers that, oh fuck, I got eaten by a mountain lion. Don't want that to happen again. And it's a genetic nervousness in their body, and so they're going to be happier if they're in environments where that's suitable for them, and it actually helps them digest food. Like, there's a whole digestion and mental and physical body health element to it.
Right.
So yeah, being able to have those kind of conversations with people, and or yeah, sorry, tangent. I just like that one.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't know if caves is in my reading.
Yeah, you can get it pretty quickly. If you shoot me your birth info later, I'll let you know what you're interested in. I'll just ask you a couple of questions, and that's the kind of thing I want to do. I want to,
Yeah.
like, I've already done a couple of information nights, and so that would be like, hey, did you know this thing exists? So I provide a bit of
So
background and
so
how
are
it works.
these people, are these generally your clients for the human design? Are they people funky that are part of Funky Town or attending events at Funky Town? So it could
I
be the
believe,
same people. For that reason, it might just make sense to have DMs within that space. If somebody wants to do a reading, that's done in a DM within the space, which is private, even though it's in or owned by that space. So you don't have to create another thread of a conversation that's in a different place. Might be more convenient.
that sounds better, and I can do a one to many DM. Like, I could set one up with 3 people, I suppose, as well, or is it always one to one in the spaces?
No, it can be group. Yeah, but it's not one to many in that only you can talk, they can only listen. It's many to many, but you can. Well, we've had DMs of hundreds of people, so many people as you want in there. So you can
Well,
do a group thing in a DM, but a DM is private from the channels of the space or the main area of the space.
Well, like, to your question or comment earlier, like, I could see profile being something that's broken into one of these DMs. So that's that 3-5 thing. Like, hey, all three
Yeah,
five. This is ours. I mean,
yeah,
most people generally benefit from going like, oh, my brother's a 3-5, so they want to actually hear like what their experience might be like. But I could definitely see taking a little group offline within the space. Yeah. Hmm. And then, like, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but we can leave up to 10-minute volleys. Uh, and, but if I upload a video, like if someone did a 20-minute breath work thing, because it was part of being in that community, like someone was like, 9 o'clock tonight, I want to unwind and do Catherine's breath work, because it's an option there. Or would that be just something I host somewhere else and then link within a
You could
chat?
do either. As long as it was less than 250 megabytes, you could upload it.
Okay.
But if it was bigger than that, that's just our file storage limit, and that's just because we're not trying to be a video pirating. you
Mhm.
know, we're not trying to be YouTube. So volleys can actually be 15 minutes in spaces. In spaces, you can actually set them for the group, however long you want them to be. Yours will be 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes. Theirs will be. Some people have wanted volleys to only be 1 minute in spaces, just because they want brief responses from everyone in the space except me. I can do my 5 or 10-minute volleys.
Well, and that makes sense. And probably what I'd do is create Vimeo or YouTube private
Yeah.
links and then just
Yeah.
link them in there for the longer content. Because I probably want it
Mhm.
to be 4K and if I can, like all that
Yeah.
stuff, like high res.
Yep.
And I mean, that must be just coming back to volley and scale. Because the one thing you guys do unbelievably is just like you say, you create a video and it's just there. So
Yeah.
like I really like I've been using Loom for the last year, which solves one problem, but it wasn't at all what I was looking for really.
Mhm.
There, I have to like create it and wait for it to upload and
Wait for upload, grab the link, send the link. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Then they view it. Then they can't reply. So then they have to reply in text or wherever. I mean, you can make a comment on that, but then just like it's just through email or text inboxes, this messaging on either side.
mhm,
But you're right. And we worked really hard. Like we built our own proprietary video pipeline to be able to send messages. That's a very technically difficult challenge. And we tried to use some off the shelf tools and open source tools. None of them could send videos fast enough. And so what's happening with Volley, as you're recording the video, your app or the front end is sending video chunks back to the back end in small second segments. And the
mhm,
back end is like receiving them and processing them on the fly so that when you hit send, it's just the last 1 or 2 segments that are being sent over to the back end. The back end takes the last 2, wraps it up, sends a push notification out to the other person. So we're assembling the video as you're going, and then if you cancel it, we just scrap it. But then we'll start assembling your next one. And that's the only way we could do what we're doing, is allow somebody to receive a push notification within seconds after somebody stops recording a video message.
well, just to nerd out, because you just basically described TCP/IP versus UDP/IP. But anyways, like that's awesome. So what happens if, because you're kind of stitching it together, like it's arriving. So
Yeah,
like you said, it feels like I just clicked send, it went, but really you're just tacking on the caboose onto the end of the train.
that's right.
If one of the cars is missing, what do you do to recover that? Is the whole 3 minutes gone? Because there, or is it just that you put a marker, or or does that
We put
even
a
help?
marker, and we'll try to get it. I think for up to 10 minutes, because a lot of times just cell reception. As you're driving, you can go into a dead zone or whatnot. That happens. So we'll keep trying to fetch it. In those instances, we won't send the video. And if we can't complete it, I think it's either 5 or 10 minutes. We'll just send you a notification that Volley failed to send.
Mhm.
And so you'll have to try to resend it. And so there is a local version on your device while it's sending, so it'll try to resend that local version, and we'll try to do what we did before. If that won't work, then you just have to re-record the volley. But that happens very rarely. I don't know if you ever saw it. I've seen it because I've sent
No,
a million volleys.
yeah, and I mean broadband's improving all the time,
Sure,
and honestly, if you're making something that's supposed to be polished, you're probably going to record it with your phone and then upload it, right? So
probably.
really, any under 3 minutes is if you can't get those 3 minutes back, or you're pissed off about that happening once in a blue moon.
And you're
So
probably going to say it better the second time,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is why I cancel maybe a third of my volleys, because I just know when it's coming out of my mouth, I can. This is already 3 minutes. Let me, okay, cancel. Like, I know I'm going to have to take more time to say it again, but I'm going to save that person time, and I'm going to totally redeem myself by getting my crisp thoughts together and getting this out in 60 seconds.
So that's the best hint you've given me because I'm definitely one of those third time's the charm, but I hit
Yeah,
send after the first one because I'm like, I'll probably
ship
forget.
it. Yeah, let's
But
go.
yeah, no, you're right. Of course, I don't have to hit the send button. It could be it's a rehearsal, a dress
Yep,
rehearsal, and then
yep.
yeah. Oh, thanks for the reminder. I don't do that at all.
Yeah, that little X next to the record button, or it says cancel on desktop. You can just
Mm,
cancel that puppy and start over. So I do that a lot more than I probably should. We had a stat, I forgot what it was, but it was kind of a surprising number of canceled volleys occurred. I'm not. This isn't data, so but it was like half of volleys or something crazy like that were canceled and re-recorded.
hmm. Yeah,
So that could be a bad thing because people are like obsessing and overthinking. You don't want that, right? But
yeah.
you also, this is like, you don't get a second chance at a first impression. And why not put your best foot forward? And sometimes saying things out loud is what helps me process the thing I'm trying to say. And now that I've said it, I realize what I actually need to say, and it's not quite coming out. So let me start over. Okay, here's how it goes. Yeah,
Oh.
that's why I sound so smart in my volleys. I practiced 10 times before I sent it to you.
Yeah, well, now you know my ramble is that was the first take. That's
That
what
was the first take. Yeah.
you get is gonna be it'll be take 3. Like, I'll be sure that I won't waste too much of your time. It's
That's
funny
right.
in human design terms. There's this idea of some people are self-projected projectors, and I've met a few that actually like their throats will close if they can't hear, like they won't want to say something to someone because they have no confidence until they've heard themselves say it first.
Hmm.
So there's like as a tactic, those people like my sister-in-law, she already figured this out for herself. She will record on her iPhone what she wants to say to her neighbor and then
Yeah.
play it back to herself and go, no, that's not right. And once she says it, then when she goes to speak, it's full confidence. She's not wondering what she's thinking.
Mhm.
And so it's funny. Like I just speak and spew, and if you look at my design, you'll see why. But I probably could benefit from a little
Well,
bit
I
of
think some people are verbal processors. I'm not. I
yeah.
I feel like I have the same thing, but I have to write it. Like I can't really think unless I have my fingers on a keyboard. Then I can really think. There's something about that for me that just works. And if you put me on a spot or like this is podcasts, honestly, sometimes the thing I hate the most is these random out of the blue. Name the top 3 things that a new business person could learn and blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. What do you
Mhm.
want me to say? What 3 things? I the top 3 things? That means in my head I have to generate a list of all the things, then generate the list of the top 3 things, and then succinctly. I don't know. I just don't process that way, and I'm not able to pull things out as artfully as most people it seems. But if you let me get on my keyboard, I can like write those things, and yeah, I process when I write.
I promise
What's
my
that?
question won't be like that. So I got one for you. It's appeared in my head twice. I'm just going to ask it. All of our volleys up to date. You're always wearing the same shirt, but
Am
you
I?
wearing a
This
different
one?
shirt. No, 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 not this one. So this is different. So I was like,
Oh.
is there volley work, Josh? And you actually like because people want to be consistent on video. I wondered if that was a tactic. Is like that's a shirt
Oh.
I wear when I'm on volley, and because we've been volleying here and there, right? What, a couple days ago, but yeah, so I just thought I'm just going to ask that question because, like, podcast Josh wears something different than the volley,
Oh, interesting. Hold on. I'm looking back at a conversation because I can see. So I have flannel. I had flannel. No, yeah, I did have flannel both times I volleyed you with a video volley.
right?
Um,
Different days. So, and I
were
was,
they
and
different days?
did you wash them?
Ooh,
So,
dirty boy. I think you just found a dirty boy. No, but I do wear overshirts because it's kind of cold in my office sometimes in the morning. Um, so I don't wash the overshirts daily, but I do wash my undershirts.
mm,
So
mm.
is that am I a dirty boy still, or is am I?
No, but you might be calm touch, which is me. Which I finally. So again, back to the human design thing because I love this stuff. But I have to buy my own clothes and I have to touch them and feel them before I can wear them. And I had no idea that was a thing for me until I turned 51. And it was because it was right there on paper. So basically my skin is very sensitive to the material. So I've ordered some really
Hmm.
cool shirts on Amazon and thought, oh, and it arrived and it looked awesome. Put it on my skin, and could never wear it, but didn't
Interesting.
know that it was my body rejecting. It was just like something I just didn't feel like wearing it, and it
Mhm.
explains most of my childhood because my grandmother would always buy me a wool sweater every year, and I wanted to love my grandmother by honoring this gift that she gave me.
Mhm.
This torture.
Ugh.
So
Yeah.
now that I know that about myself, I've got tactics. I wear really comfortable undershirts because I like
Mhm.
them anyways, and then I can throw whatever else I want on top. So
That's right.
maybe like
That's good.
if you wash your undershirt, you might be of a similar. Um, yeah, it's just there. It's like it's part of your physical being.
That's right.
And you don't have to apologize for it. It's just like that's your unique
That's funny. Yeah,
else.
that's funny. Or sometimes, yeah, my overshirt will just get laid on a chair or something, and I'll just pick that one up again because it's convenient and I'm lazy.
Mhm.
Now I'm gonna be really obsessing about what shirts I'm wearing on what days when I volley, what people. I'm gonna go scroll back up and see what did I wear last time when I volleyed. Okay.
Well, we haven't had that many volleys, so it's not like 6 weeks and a bunch of
That's
different
right.
games. So, but it was just I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I'm a pattern matcher. I definitely find little patterns. And
Yeah, I guess that's good that you
mm,
noticed that.
where do you
And
live? I don't even know where you're based.
I'm in Utah.
Yeah, okay.
Grew up in Michigan, was in Michigan 36 years, moved out here like 12 years ago. And
Well,
if you can add, now you know my age.
um, yeah, there you go. Um, and most of your team probably isn't in Utah. Like I imagine you're a mostly remote force for the
Mostly
actual.
remote. Yep. And we were remote. In fact, when we started building Volley, we all got together in this office. The four founders were in Utah. And we realized pretty quickly that we do not use our product when we sit in the same office together all day. So we realized, oh, we have to be remote on purpose because we're building a tool for remote communication.
Mhm.
So that was funny that wasn't obvious to us until we actually started to launch the product and start to use it ourselves. But
Mhm.
yeah, now Volley has engineers, Latin America, India, US, all around the world.
Cool. So what's well, I don't you don't have to spill any beans, but what's next? I mean, you've just relaunched, so it's kind of like just getting new data, new subscribers.
Yep.
Um, what's you probably have a bit of a feature pipeline and or what are your objectives or goals? Broad strokes, like is usability number one right now? Is it getting people comfortable on video? Because I do recall, like right at the end last year, there was a lot. Like I could see it, and I was experiencing it with people where they would resist using it, not because it wasn't a
Yeah.
great tool. It was because I don't want to see myself on video, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
um, yeah, where are you headed?
Yeah, so broad strokes, I mean, we're just getting to the end of the first stroke, which is just rebuild the thing and get it back out into the world as it was, right? Or as close as possible. And with that, monetize it appropriately. Like put the pricing model that probably should have existed from day one,
Mhm.
but didn't make sense if we're raising venture money to like limit our growth based on monetization. So probably the next iteration is just that like figuring out it feels like there's a little bit of friction and people understanding pro versus spaces, and if I upgrade this, do I get that? Can I invite people? Do they have to pay? Like these sorts of questions. So I think creating a lot more clarity around that is the next mountain to climb here over the next little bit, and then setting up kind of the circus that we had before of the community spaces. There we had community. I don't know if you're any Volley for coaches or creators or any of those spaces, but those were well received and kind of knit the community of Volley together. So get those established as we start inviting more and more people. We haven't even announced publicly yet. I've only sent iterative emails out to the wait list. And so now that I've gotten invites out and only one email, probably in the next week or so, we'll start to announce publicly and share on social and starting to invite people in. Just needed to make sure we got enough people, enough Android users in, that there's enough types of devices that the thing isn't crashing or something isn't going crazy before we, shout the mega horn. And
Mhm.
then based upon how the world receives Volley and how it's being used, the next brushstroke is kind of a mystery. I know I have places I would like to go, especially, in the AI renaissance that's happened over the last 18 months. there's a lot of things that could be made better in Volley with like note taking, or with summaries of channels or summaries of volleys within those channels in the transcripts. Those sorts of things would be no brainers in Volley. Things
Mhm.
I'm less excited about, people, when we were shutting down Volley, they're like, oh man, you need to do like AI responses. Like if you could learn my content as a coach and you could respond to my customers. And I'm not sure that's why we built Volley. We built Volley to help people connect better, to bring humans together, not to put something in between them. So I'm not excited about any artificial forms of communication or bot forms of communication.
Mhm.
But if I can help a human communicate better and help them understand the context of what was said so they can create a better reply, I'm all about that. Right. So if we can, I'm all about building Iron Man, you're putting an exoskeleton around a human to help them be better if possible. So those are some of the things. And you mentioned some things like we had some features in the what we called consult offering for Volley, which allowed people to consult or create paid membership groups. Some of those features would be great just to sweeten the pro version. That is like you mentioned, the keeping track of time, and maybe some of the landing pages for offerings, and maybe even allowing someone to charge for experiences they create in Volley. We just don't take a percentage of it, and we're not in the middle of that. Just like put in your Stripe account, sure, you charge, do whatever you want. We're not taking liability for what you're saying or taking a percentage of it. It's just part of the pro plan. So
Hmm.
those sorts of things could make a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, so a bunch of things there. One, I circling right back to the beginning, the spaces where folks could discuss their spaces, share it, and kind of get critiqued by others. Like, I'm
Yeah.
creating this, what do
Yep.
you think? Like, I think that I remember that being hugely valuable and really set you guys apart. Like, I'd never seen anything like that before. And then the fact that you're able to leverage the tool for that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for sticking to your values around the platform. Like, we don't need another automated bot
Nah.
platform, right? This is about having a someone carefully take 10 seconds and think about the
Yeah.
response, or 2 hours or whatever. So if a bot is doing that, then that we lost the whole plot. So
Yeah. Yeah. Real, authentic human communication. This is why, like, a lot of people, a lot of these folks who are uncomfortable with video, they don't say, I'm uncomfortable with video. I'm vain. I don't like seeing myself, right? They don't say those words, but they'll say things like, you need filters. You guys really need backgrounds. Oh, you guys really need to put a pink. Wouldn't it be awesome if you had like Snapchat like things where I could like put a unicorn face on my, I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not the point. That's not why we're here. Maybe I'm crazy, but I am trying to help people communicate better, faster, and more often, and more authentically. And I feel like a lot of that just gets in the way. If you're, I don't know. I guess you could be embarrassed of the surroundings you're in and not want that. But that's where you're at. That's real. That's so we do. Yes. And your phone can put a blur on the background, and we do support that. You can do those things, but we're never going to have Snapchat filters. We're never going to do a unicorn head. And we're never going to, or avatars. That was another one. Tons of people. What if it was just me and it was
oh
my
yeah.
avatar, and my mouth was moving? And I'm like, that's not it. That's 55% of the communication equation is what you look like when you say the words, like what my eyes look like as I'm saying these words that I'm passionate about.
Mhm.
Not what some emoji looks like, that we could hide behind. So
Yeah, no, it would completely defeat the whole purpose of this kind of conversation, I think.
yeah,
So maybe, like when I was talking about helping people with decisions, like from a marketing standpoint, that feels to me like a landing page that you could speak to. To me, that's a key benefit that I think people don't realize just how useful other people's knowledge is, and just give them a minute to answer,
right.
thoughtfully. Um, Man, to me, I Volley is a decision helping tool, decision making tool. Like,
Yeah.
and again, maybe perhaps selfishly, but there's real power in that. Um, hmm. Yeah, and I don't think we want Well, so where AI could be useful is, I don't know, maybe that's not even AI, but we were bantering the other day about being able to like click on a video. Someone's said something and like, that part
Oh
I'm
yeah, that'd be
right.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yep.
like, or picking up on action items. I mean, that's one thing that Loom does pretty well is like it'll transcribe it and then it'll be like, these are the, it actually draws a word cloud, which is one
Hmm.
thing. It's actually interesting in itself. Like someone mentioned
Yeah.
human design 80 times. Clearly that was the thing in that video or something. But yeah, if it just could help pull out action items so that you could, like
Yeah.
what are next steps? Because really that's even from a decision standpoint, like what now,
Yeah. Yeah.
get to the
Yeah,
point.
I think there's a lot of things that could help us, like action items or notes. Just like what were the what are the things that you need to respond to in this volley, and that's why people want notes. But I think we can solve the notes problems with AI. Like, here are the three main things that were talked about, because typically volleys, they're not one dimensional. They're not really just about one thing. It's really, hey, I have this idea and this is why I did that, and do you really think this? And there's usually like two or three things that you kind of need to respond to, and if you can't mentally jot those down, you need to write them down, or uh, have AI take those notes for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
those things would be awesome. Sky's the limit, but we need to see what the world thinks. We need to see what the world responds to. So far, so good. I think, in terms of reception, I think there's a little bit of confusion about pricing model and how we're doing it. We'll work through those challenges. But if people really want this thing to live, they'll support it like you are, right? They'll pay for it, because it's a good service and it helps them communicate better, and create better relationships in their lives, and that's worth $10 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah. Can I ask you about the logo? Because the
Yeah,
word volley makes sense. Volleying back and forth, 100%. But I don't get the sort of pink peace symbol. So, when
it's
I
kind of
see
hidden.
it's a hidden message.
V
Oh,
for
V.
victory.
Oh, okay. I see that. Or I was thinking like like a slingshot, like you're pulling it back, right?
Could be, could be. That's right. That's right.
That's hmm.
Yeah, we had all kinds of like ball streak logos in the beginning and dot dot dot, and they just felt a little too on the nose,
Mhm.
and not kind of the spirit that we wanted the product to feel. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, Joe, my co-founder and designer, once had a peace sign logo up, and at first I was like, oh, that doesn't feel right. But then the more I started thinking about it and the more we talked about it, I was like, oh, that actually is right. And then the V there, I'm like, okay, yeah, that is it. So people seem to love it.
Yeah, no, sorry, it's not even a criticism. I didn't quite understand, and then just because I've launched products and I remember the conversations about like what what does this conjure up in someone's mind when they're using it,
Hmm.
and so I hadn't quite pieced that one together, but that helps a lot. I thought I was onto something with the slingshot thing. That's what I thought it was. It was just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
something.
that works too. And of course, like when you buy a car and then that's all you see on the road the next day, it's
Mhm.
like we choose the peace sign, and then suddenly we find all these companies that have peace signs in their logo. We're like, wow, dang it. But
Not so many pink
people
ones,
like it,
so yeah.
especially a pink one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Why pink then? Was
Oh,
there?
just totally random. I haven't had a pink company. I've had an orange company. I've had a blue company. I've had a green company. I've had a purple company. What about a pink company? Well, just like main theme color. And Joe was like, yeah, that would be good. So totally random. Just like haven't tried this one before.
And is it the same founders team? Like you said, there was four of you that started, or all four still involved, or?
Not involved, in a day-to-day perspective, involved in a financial outcome perspective, but no, kind of a whole new team that I've put together in the studio now. Would love to get the band back together, but again, that's kind of based upon how the world receives Volley. The
Mhm.
reason it shut down is like it's a very complex product built on 4 code bases natively: iOS, Android, web, which is a desktop app also, and then a back end that serves all three of those. So it's really 4 engineers that you need to support this thing. And engineers aren't cheap, last time I checked. And then you've got to have somebody to run support or front end as well. So it's a minimum 5-person team to run it. And like the revenue Volley, even with the user base that we had at the end, like $5K a month is all Volley was doing in revenue. And that's
Wow.
yeah, just not going to float the boat anytime soon. So that's why we needed to regroup, put a team. So the nice thing with the studio is nobody has to be on Volley full time. They can be working on our other portfolio companies or other projects. And we can do whatever Volley needs us to do, but not have a payroll that looks like a siloed single entity. So Volley is just one of our many companies, one of our many investments, and we'll keep it going and build on it, but only as it shows us it needs it.
So interesting hearing you talk about that. I have a company called Rockstar Antics, and it's my little incubator for other companies and products. But that was like my second go at that, because I tried to use my consulting company to build some apps. And you were, well, I'm a 3.5, so I bounce around too. Like it just
You're a 3.5?
Oh yeah, yeah. When you said you were at MG 3.5, I was like, yeah, brother.
Oh really?
But my path to get here is me kind of leaving most of that behind. But like hearing your business acumen approach to it, like that wasn't me. I came to it as this consulting company that we were doing Microsoft stuff. And then things got quiet and was like, well, let's build an app. And so, build a platform for that. And it's just really interesting. There's the intersections of our backgrounds are completely different, but also there's a lot of really interesting similarities there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The 3.5 thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I don't know. Well, let's see if this resonates for you. So Ra, the guy that kind of produced the system, he said that 3.5s were often burned at the cross, but instead of being given an owner's manual, their parents were given steak sauce. Or burned at the stake, not burned at the cross, burned at the stake.
Burned at the stake.
Yeah. So really? But when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's just it. It was like I grew up where, I only learned through experience. So, and that's how I remember it. And so, if you don't have the right support system, it's failure after failure instead of feedback instead of failure. And so when I talk to parents of 3.5s, it's always like, it's really important to say, like, what did you learn from that? Brush yourself off. Like we feel that really, really deeply. It's because you can't even account for when it just happens to you. It's not even real. It's nothing wrong with you.
Oh, yeah.
Literally your aura and your environment. And that's, yeah.
Right. Yep. I'll just randomly in the middle of a Saturday hop up off the couch and go start a new project or build something. I've always got to be doing something, building something, creating something. Even in the times that I've sold my company, I thought it was retired. I mean, those times are filled with YouTube channels and hydroponic gardens and, all kinds of new experiments and creations. So yes, I learned from experience, and it's almost like Lego, like I love building the thing, but then when I have the thing, I don't really want to play. I just built this actually. My son gave this to me for my birthday. I just built it, and then I just twisted the wheels a couple times. I was like, that's cool. Okay, we'll set it over here.
Yep.
That's kind of how I feel with projects as well. Just like, all right, I figured it out. It worked.
Yep.
What can I do next?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So as a manifesting generator, multi-passionate, 3.5, learn through experience, walk up 2 flights of stairs, fall down 1, walk up 2 more, fall down 1. It's kind of the life experience. And then picking projects up and putting them down and having the energy. Like, do you have the energy to carry through what you just worked on? Or for me, if I'm not learning something new, I can't do the experience again. Like even just, making videos and uploading them. I have edited enough videos and I've learned enough techniques. There's really nothing new to learn. There's just new techniques to be found or something on YouTube. And it doesn't interest me at all. So, I'll do a podcast with someone and then it'll just sit there for a week because I can't even get off my ass to take 10 minutes. It's just like, I know how to do that. There's nothing to learn.
There's nothing there. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
But I got to follow through with Volley. It was just too good of a product to not live. That's how I felt. Tried to find a buyer, talked to hundreds of companies, just couldn't get anyone to buy. So I was like, I'll buy it. It
That's
needs
cool.
to live. We can't
I
bury
actually,
it.
I actually sent a Loom to someone high up at Microsoft, like in a product group there, and I was like, "You guys gotta look at this thing." Like
Really?
yeah, didn't even reply, and it's someone that I've known and wouldn't normally
Yeah.
not reply, but I guess just
Yeah.
funny. I've heard this about Microsoft and seen it firsthand as a like. So I was an MVP. I would get invited to go there every year and and sit through product group stuff, and even that's funny. So Microsoft, big company, lots of product groups. You'd go in and you'd get to meet with the 365 team or the SharePoint team, and they would sit there and collect feedback. Like it would be a feedback session. So it'd be 200 experts in the room, these MVPs, often with a lot of pomp and circumstance and arrogance. But and then the product team is has to sit there and hear everybody's hey you shoulds. You should do this, you should do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And we learned, and they would often serve booze in these things. So it became a drinking game because what the product team would always say is, "Oh, that's great feedback," and then like that, and you just knew,
Oh,
just like, "Yeah, thanks, buddy. Thanks for your
yeah. Right.
you should." But
Nope.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you could do 1,000 things, right? But you got to get
Hmm.
narrow in focus. It's got to be based on solid footing, like a why.
Yeah. Limited resources. Yeah. Like right now, based on the feedback of the pricing, I want to change it immediately. I want to do it today. I want to do it tonight, but I know I need to measure twice and cut once. And the data that I have is a little bit fuzzy. It's a little bit early. And so I'm resisting reacting. And I just need to run a little more tape on this and see if the signals I'm getting are actual, true signals and not noise.
Do you want to discuss any of that here or run that by me? Like, what are you seeing or thinking about?
Well, I can tell you with the feedback that I'm getting, kind of the patterns of feedback that I'm seeing right now. And you mentioned one of them here. Let me pull up my doc here because I've kind of crystallized them. So some people are feeling like the free account is too limited, and I'm trying to suss whether that's just previous Volley users who kind of had the full kitchen sink and now feeling like it's way too much of a squeeze, or if it's really too limited to use. But the distinction there is that they feel like it's so limited that they don't want to invite people because it's not differentiated from other messaging apps. So I think that's sound.
So I have some feedback for you from
Yeah.
two people that I've sent Volley to that had never seen it before. So it was their first introduction, and it was me coming in like, you got to meet me here because you know what, I'm not going to meet you elsewhere, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
That was kind of I did it, and both were just there was the discomfort around video, but the flag for follow up was one that I think is not in the free, but it probably is a really
That's right.
simple ad. And because you're like, oh, I want to get back to this person, but I want to forget to get back to this person. That is probably one that's would be an easy fix. And I think, do you limit? They can't change the speed in the free
That's
one.
right. Yeah.
I just wonder if that, like from that freemium avoiding friction thing, that's a light, like it's just the usability at that point. I wonder if that's one that's worthy of keeping, like incorporating to the free,
Yeah.
based on if very few use cases, but those were the things that they were like, oh, that would have been useful. And then once they learn and get comfortable with video, they're probably going to sign up for pro and see the value in it. In fact, the two people I shared it with are the kind of folks that would probably do their own human design stuff, for example, and you do the one or create spaces. So
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe yeah, you don't want to give too much away for free, but it's anything that's kind of basic usability. I find those are friction points that force people to not force them, cause them to look elsewhere with a short attention span.
Yep. Yep. And at the same time, I know that the speed of playback is the most valuable thing. It's like, I know from Marco Polo users, it's like the only reason they pay for Marco Polo, just for
Really?
speed. That's it. Yeah. So you could look at that as like, oh, it's being less generous, or you could look at that as like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that one. I just know
That's tough.
that's probably bullet point number one in reasons to pay for Volley at this point. But it's also bullet point number one in ways we could differentiate from other video messaging apps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other feedback, people who are purchasing spaces are expecting a pro upgrade along the way because of the plans page. Standard SaaS plans. If you get one, if you get the high one, you get the lower tiers. Also, you get those things. But Spaces and direct messages are two different sections of the app, two different modalities. And so that's another one, is just people being confused about that generally. And they paid for space, they don't have those features over here. Or even somebody's a member of the space, they can share images here, but they can't share images with their friends. Why can't I do that?
Mhm.
That's limited. So it's just kind of this, and we've always had it. Volley is a very rare app in that it has both a messaging app and a Spaces app within it. There's only one other app, Discord, that has both. And Discord is notoriously confusing to people, kind of for this reason. But we feel like it with Volley. Like Slack has solved this problem by allowing you to have conversations with people outside of your workspace in the workspace. So if I want to talk to my mom on Slack, she has to show up in my work, space, Wingspan. And that's weird. That's just weird. So there's nowhere in Slack to just have a DM with one person who you don't work with or who isn't part of this space. And likewise in like Telegram or Signal or Messenger, you can't create spaces. It's just DMs. It's just single threaded DMs all the way down. Volley
Mhm.
has both. It has your DMs, and then you can create a space that has all those features with all those people pulled together in one place. Powerful if you get it. It's just hard to get. And so I think a lot of this pricing confusion is just like, how does this work? If I upgrade this, why doesn't this happen? So just trying to make it clear, but also building the business sustainably, because video messaging is a very expensive thing to do. It's not like
Very
it's not like a note taking app, or it's not like a CRM where you're just inputting some text in a field. It's storing videos of everything that everyone has said to each other in a conversation for a long time, right? And that's expensive. It's more expensive to process than store, actually.
Mhm.
So we can't do what we did before, give away too much and make this an unsustainable business model with insane costs, because then we'll just end up shutting it down again. So maybe the pendulum has swung too far, where we're maybe over monetizing a little bit. So maybe we need to just adjust it back and somehow simplify it and make it more clear.
Yeah, I remember being a little confused about the pro license and the spaces, but I do see that like there is a distinction between the two needs for sure, and so I don't
Yeah.
have a problem paying that. I was surprised that you provide a year's worth of video storage for free. Like to me, I would, because it's async communications, and if they're not paying for it, I would offer a month or 3 months for that.
Oh, well,
And
the free version is 30 days.
oh, is it 30? Oh, I thought it
Yeah.
was. Where did I see a
No,
year?
it's in the pro version. You get a year
But I also
history.
saw something that said 3 years, or is there? Did I imagine that maybe?
Spaces. Yeah.
Spaces is 3 years. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense. Right, because yeah, Spaces, if people are building what they feel is kind of like an archive,
Yeah.
they they may even want more than 3 years. Do you advise, like, or maybe it's something to think about, is like, hey, this particular thing is going to expire in a month, and off, like it's 2.5 years down the line or more, but it might be something.
No. We could, and we can also extend the life on a space. We can change those settings
Yeah,
if
yeah.
somebody wants to, but it'll cost more.
Hmm.
Yeah, it just feels like we haven't nailed it in terms of pricing, but I don't know if that's just because of people's expectations or old feedback. Like we had one user who was kind of like one of our core community members in all the communities, very active, wanted to see Volley back, and he asked, like within a few days of launching, he asked for his account to be deleted because we wouldn't hook up all the OGs that were in Volley, like we wouldn't.
Hmm.
And I gave a discount, like a really steep discount to everyone. But that's kind of the point. Like it can't be free anymore, and if it's free, it's got to be limited, because I can't let costs run away with the show here.
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance.
Totally. And because Volley's back, like there are features that I miss. Like I love the idea where you could create a product and someone could buy 2 hours of my time, and that was
Yeah.
really clever. I thought the way that worked.
Yep.
I love that, and I miss that. But yeah, dude.
But maybe that can come back. I'm just saying maybe that's a pro feature. Maybe that's,
Oh, for
something you pay for, but you just pay $10 a month and you don't pay. Like we had some people making like $20,000 a month with that product, which is great. We take 5% of that.
sure. Mhm.
But it just wasn't enough. And the churn was so high that, having been around SaaS products for a long time, churn is the killer of all SaaS products. And that was the worst churn I've ever seen. So
Wow, man. Do you think it was the timing too, though?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it really
We
seemed
we
the timing.
it was timing and it was just runway. Like if I had 2 years to figure that business out and optimize it and work through all of the interactions and how they needed to happen, and yes, we could have figured that out. And the world needed it and loved it. Like we had an amazing user spike when we launched those products, the Consult with Me and the Grow platform that allowed people to monetize. So reception from users was great. But I was like 3 months from the end of my runway,
Mhm,
and I needed at least a month to shut the thing down because people were charging and had to fulfill experiences that they had sold on Volley.
mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. I was throwing Hail Marys. Just couldn't get one to land.
Yeah, I
But
had to.
now
I know.
under the studio, I don't have to do that. I don't have to throw Hail Marys. I can just get the app out in the world, put a reasonable monetization strategy in place that covers the expenses of Volley and let it grow organically over time without
Mhm.
feeling like I need to grow at 1,000% a year to make the next VC that I meet happy.
Yeah, totally. Dude, I had to kill a product, not kill it. I had to just decide that it wasn't. I didn't have the energy for it, and I finally did it 2 months ago. And I agonized over the decision for 3 years,
Oh,
like just
really?
shutting it down because it was a tool that some businesses and a couple of colleges depended on, and I was actually losing money keeping it alive, and I had no
Yeah.
left. And there's a whole bunch of shit attached to it mentally and emotionally. So I know how that feels. It's a heavy. So yeah. Um, Oh, I lost the question. I had a great question for you.
I don't know. That was over 600 milliseconds. That was an awkwardly long pause.
It was, but I was being, I was reflecting.
And then you were thinking about how awkward it was, and that took 600 milliseconds to think about that. And then it's compounding, and then you just can't recover after that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, I remember you mentioning that earlier. It's 11 seconds is when people are visibly irritated waiting for an elevator. So the next time
Oh,
you're,
really?
yeah, yeah, count, and right after about 11 seconds, people start like getting fidgety and start staring at the ground and the ceiling and stuff.
Get
Yeah.
out your
Oh,
phone.
a local radio station here, although they had video of it, but it was on YouTube, I guess. But they found some research, and the average man pees for 17 seconds, and so they were like timing people in washrooms at the urinals and stuff.
Really?
See, and like people were kind of like for the most part within that range, unless they had a couple pints of beer all at once or something.
Right,
Yeah, it
right.
was
That's funny.
the average human male 17 seconds. It was either 27. It was one of those two numbers, but
I would think it would be longer. 17 feels short. I'm
maybe
gonna
maybe
have
it
to
was
tell
27
myself that.
seconds. But it was very, and I'm just I've definitely experimented with that over time, and then I wonder, am I like adjusting my flow, or so these are the
Uh-huh.
things that my brain thinks about sometimes.
That's good.
Hmm.
Well,
Cool.
it's good to get a chance to partake of your brain for a little bit and to have this conversation together. Did we cover all the things that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gotta give a name to the space, and I gotta think about the channels, but I think I'm just gonna mind map that out. And
I
you gave me
think
a lot
Funky Town
of
is so good.
sorry.
Funky Town is so good. You wouldn't name it Funky Town? Space?
Oh yeah, no, it probably would be. So it's Funke town. You ever see Arrested Development, the TV show?
Yeah,
Remember Tobias
dude,
Funke?
it's hilarious that you say that because I feel like you sound like Tobias to me. Like you have the same timbre of your voice a little bit.
Oh really? That's so funny.
Is Tobias Canadian? Is
No,
what
it's the American show, American
David
actor
Cross?
David Cross.
Yeah.
Um, that's funny that you say I
I
sound like
got some
it's
Tobias vibes from you earlier, so I thought about Tobias. So
okay.
Bunke Town. Okay.
Well, I mean, we call it Funky Town, but like
Funky Town.
at the back end, I actually made my own whiskey and had it labeled and decided to call it a new start. So I
Huh.
don't remember Tobias's license plate, but every time he got a new job, he'd get custom license plates. And so he wanted to have a new start, but it was anus tart. So
Yeah, yeah.
I have 42 bottles left of whiskey that have anus tart written across the front of them. So it is. It's funny. I never thought of myself being like him. I just thought it was a good inside joke. But
That's funny.
that's curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, that was super fun. I appreciate getting to hang with you on that. And I got some insights to roll with. I got to leave for pickleball in an hour, so I
You
won't.
got to get some pickleball going in your life.
Yeah. But
Yep.
once I'll check in with you once I start mapping that out. And I think it'll be like the Funky Town community space, or it'll
Yeah.
probably be something like that. And then I definitely took from here that I don't need to. Or, as I say, I already picked up on it. That I think the human design consult thing I would just offer as an offering within that, and not
Mhm.
having a standalone product
Yeah.
anyway. So even that, I was just kind of connecting the dots as we were talking. So that's
Sounds
good.
like it. Yeah. Sounds like that's just DMs within that space or outside of that space if it's somebody who's not connected to Funky Town.
Yeah.
Because I would think you would have clients, coming to you from other avenues too.
Yeah, and not necessarily even local. Like there's a lot of remote interest, so I can take care of all
Mhm.
those things. All right, man. Well, why don't we wrap it up there?
Okay.
Why don't you hang out here? I'll just I'll stop this and play my outro music, and we just wrap up and have a quick chat.
Awesome.
Okay, man. Let me see if I can find the button. Oh yeah, there it is.